killed her.
And I never got to say goodbye.
They thought their ordeal was over.
He has the coldest eyes I've ever seen in my life. They just look right through you.
His sentence? Life in prison.
A judge slammed the hammer and said, "This man's going away for life."
This is a man who should never be out of jail.
Just imagine the family's outrage when the killer was freed on parole.
What interest do I have in it? I'm one of his victims.
I know that I'm all right.
There's no way to rehabilitate a man like him. He's a sociopath.
Then outrage turned to fear.
He said all these years is that he's going to get whoever tried to block his release from prison.
He could see his parole officer at 1 o'clock on Wednesday and be on my front doorstep at 5 o'clock the same day.
But the families say they won't be victims again.
He doesn't want to mess with us.
Susan Spencer reports.
He thinks that one of you is going to come after him.
Could anybody blame us if we did that?
A 48 hours mystery. What will happen when a killer walks free? I'm Dan Rather, and this is 48 Hours. Two women were murdered almost 30 years ago in the quiet Oregon town of Medford. Their killer was caught, convicted, and sent to prison for what was supposed to be life. Case closed? Definitely not. The battle over how justice should be served was just beginning. Good evening. A trail of bloodshed and grief led to a relentless fight to keep a killer from walking free. Two families on a mission, using law and emotion to try to stop the convicted man's prison sentence from being cut short. When we first brought you this story 4 years ago, their struggle seemed lost. The murderer, after serving his time, was being released, saying he had been rehabilitated. Not a chance, said many people in Oregon. They were frightened that a killer set loose would strike again. The mystery began to unfold on a frigid winter day in 1969.
Medford was pretty much a small town at the time.
Very quiet town. Very, very quiet place.
I have good memories of Medford.
It was a new home for the 5 children of Laverna Lowe and her new husband. They were starting a new life together.
It was a real happy time for us. I mean, everything was peaches and cream.
Laverna's daughter Pam was 12.
Mom always stayed home and baked cookies and told us she loved us in the morning before we went to school.
She was always there for us. She was very much a part of our lives, you know.
Ken was 13 at the time.
We were real close.
I remember Mom kissing us at the front door, telling us goodbye and saying, "I love you." You know, she always told us she loved us before we left the house.
It was a terribly cold winter day. There was snow on the ground. It was a bad day, yeah.
Jack McMillan was captain of the Medford Police.
Yeah, it was a bad day.
Being the youngest, I was the first one home from school.
Laverna's daughter Becky was only 8 at the time.
And I walked into the house and I took my shoes off, and then when I turned around is when I found her on the couch. I thought she'd cut herself.
The youngster didn't realize it, but her mother had been murdered, the victim of a cold-blooded killer.
It was obvious that she had been shot with a .22 caliber pistol. Incidentally, she was about 8 months pregnant, as I recall.
My boss came out and said, "You better get home. There's something wrong."
Cliff and Laverna had been married less than a year.
I remember coming out and seeing the police speaking to my stepfather, and he was crying.
The man was in shock.
Police didn't know why she had been murdered, but they soon had a suspect, 24-year-old Russell Obremski, who'd been a house guest at the Lowe's that weekend. Laverna's husband had known him a bit growing up. Obremski was passing through Medford and needed a place to stay. The family welcomed him into their home.
He was fairly friendly.
Mike was the oldest child.
He was kind of outgoing. He was a fun guy, or seemingly so. Seemed carefree, footloose, fancy for, joking around with us all the time.
But there was something about the young man that shook them all.
There was just something about it I didn't trust Russell Obremski.
Something that shakes them to this day.
He has the coldest eyes I've ever seen in my life. I mean, they just look right through you.
Them eyes, I don't know, they still send a chill down my spine.
Only hours after Laverna's body was found, Obremski became the most wanted man in the West.
He should be considered armed and dangerous. We had one homicide.
I can't feature why he would have shot her even, why? That's what I don't understand.
Police knew the longer the killer was on the loose, the greater the danger he might strike again. But where? They didn't have a clue. Then, across town, police got word of something else, something very troubling. A 34-year-old woman, Betty Ritchie, had driven up to the West Main Pharmacy with her 2 young sons, Bill and Bob.
We all had the Hong Kong flu. 1969 was a big year for Hong Kong flu.
We pulled up in front of there, and my brother was to go in and get the prescription.
Went into the pharmacy, had the prescription filled out.
I was asked to wait in the car, but I said I want to go in and look at the toys. No young boys.
Came back out, and the car was gone.
Betty Ritchie and her red Chevrolet were nowhere to be found.
And I never got to say goodbye.
Police made a chilling discovery. They found a hay truck in this parking lot. It was Russell Obremski's. The motor still running. Obremski, gone. Police concluded that this violent man had kidnapped Betty Ritchie here while her kids were still inside the store and fled in her car.
We really don't have a clue which way he's gone. Nobody's seen anything. This lady's come up missing in her car. We've simply got to rely upon the eyes and ears of the community to give us a hand.
Then, from up in the mountains, a witness reported seeing a red car heading up Carberry Creek.
It had 2 people in it, and a short time later, it came back down Carberry Creek, and he only seen 1 person in the vehicle, the driver, which was a male. We gathered up a party of men, all the men that we could spare, to see if we could find any trace of her.
After hours of searching, they found what they feared the most. Betty Ritchie had been raped and murdered.
Right down in this area is where we found Miss Ritchie. Her body was nude, and she had been thrown out and had slid down the hillside in the snow.
They found the body, but where was Obremski? A witness saw the red Chevrolet head south on the interstate toward California. Obremski had driven the stolen car more than 400 miles, finally stopping at a beach on Monterey Bay. Some surfers alerted the police after they looked in the car and became suspicious.
The back seat was covered with blood. All the floorboards and everything were saturated.
And the murder weapon?
It was on him.
Russell Lauren Obremski was arrested and charged with the first-degree murders of Laverna Lowe and Betty Ritchie. It was a sensational trial, piles of evidence, and 64 witnesses against him. Obremski didn't take the stand. He was found guilty of both murders and sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. Or that's what everyone thought at the time. Now, he's getting out.
He's dangerous.
I dread the day he gets out, I do.
The man killed twice.
I think he'll kill again.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Coming up.
I killed 2 women for no reason whatsoever.
But the killer says he deserves to come out from behind bars.
I'm no longer being prosecuted, Mr. Stellinger. I'm being persecuted.
Can he be trusted not to kill again?
I know that I'll never hurt anybody.
This was Russell Obremski then, and this is Russell Obremski now.
What happened that morning?
Well, I left the house pretty early that morning.
Obremski says the day he killed the 2 women, he was drinking and using both amphetamines and LSD.
I went nuts. That's what I did. I don't really remember everything that happened. Laverne said that, asked me if I wanted something to eat. We was talking back and forth. She was doing some stuff, and she said something, I don't know, I don't even know what it was. But boy, it really pissed me off, you know, and I just lost it right there. And I had that little .22 pistol in my pocket, and that was it.
You shot her 4 times?
I shot her 4 times.
Do you remember?
See, I don't even remember shooting her, you know.
Do you remember picking up Betty Ritchie?
I don't even remember picking her up.
Do you remember shooting Betty Ritchie?
Don't remember shooting her either.
You remember dumping her out of the
I
car?
don't remember dumping her out of the car. I don't remember. I couldn't tell you where Carberry Creek Road is to save my life.
How long has this been your home?
For 25 years. Excuse me, there's some of the pheasants right there.
Oh, right here?
They're doing real
You
good.
take care of all these birds?
Yeah.
Who's this guy here?
That's Grandpa. That's an old seagull that got caught in this razor wire here. And I dug him out of the razor wire, patched his wing up, sewed it up. He knows nobody's going to bother him. And, you know, that's kind of the way I feel in here.
So who gets out of here first, you or that seagull?
I'm beating him out. Yeah, I'm beating him out.
8 days remain before Russell Obremski leaves his birds and nearly 25 years in prison. He's being paroled. Russell Obremski's life started out peacefully enough. He grew up here in Fort Klamath, Oregon, where one lady remembers him as a sweet kid who was always welcome at her house. But then, around the time he turned 10, Russell Obremski's life took a sudden turn. His mother died, leaving Obremski in the hands of his stepfather.
My stepfather used to beat me all the time. He was drunk quite a bit. He used to beat me quite often.
About 1 year later, Obremski moved to Klamath Falls, where he was adopted by his grandparents and lived in this house on the outskirts of town.
My grandparents, they were really good people, and they really cared a lot about me. But I was so full of anger and bitterness and stuff like that, they didn't stand a chance, you know.
It wasn't long before Obremski started getting into trouble. It started when he was 12 years old. He was caught trying to break into a school. From then on, the charges got more serious, graduating from juvenile to criminal court, from misdemeanors to felony.
When I got here, I wanted to die. I tried to kill myself, man. A couple of times, you know.
What did you deserve?
I deserved to die.
The death penalty?
Sure.
I got to ask you, if you deserved the death penalty in 1969, why do you deserve to walk free in 1993?
That's the law.
There was no death penalty in Oregon in 1969, so Obremski was sentenced to 2 life terms. That meant he would eventually be eligible for parole. But every time Obremski came up for parole, Laverna Lowe's family was there to fight.
At this time, I would like to give Mr. Obremski this photograph. This is a picture of our mother, the woman he took away from us 23 years ago.
Is that wrong?
Sure it's wrong. You bet it's wrong.
The victims would say what that is their ability then to remind the state what you did.
No, it's not. It's the victim's ability to seek revenge on me. That's all it is. I'm no longer being prosecuted, Mr. Selinger. I'm being persecuted.
Where do their rights end in your book? You're angry about this victims' rights movement. You're angry at these...
Victims' rights isn't a victim's This victim's rights is a legal way of persecuting a man that's committed a crime after he's in prison. I don't blame Pam Nelson for her hatred and her anger towards me. I don't blame her for her feelings. I do not blame her for trying to keep me in prison for the rest of my life. I wouldn't blame her if she did shoot me in the head. But with all the bitterness she has in her, she's setting me up for a killing so she can beat it. See? When I walk out that front door, I'm a big fat freebie to her. She can walk up and put a slug in me. I couldn't stand it. I was scared to death. I just knew he was going to come after me. Bam.
Are you afraid of that?
Hell yeah, I'm afraid of it. Did y'all have a nice trip down here? Hope so. I'd like to welcome you to my home. My name's O.B. I'm a lifer. I killed 2 women for no reason whatsoever.
Russell Obremski is making his final appearance on this inmate speaking panel, warning kids not to use drugs and alcohol, not to end up here.
Because believe me, one of you at the minimum is on their way to prison.
Randy Nicholson is a social worker who counsels kids at risk, and he's willing to take a risk on Russell Obremski.
I do whatever I can to help him get involved with the school.
But you're not afraid of Russell?
No, not afraid of Russell.
You'd open your house to him?
I believe so.
He could move next door to you?
Yeah.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure.
This is it.
This is my cage here. You'll have to excuse it. It's a mess. I wasn't expecting you to come up here.
Yeah.
That's where I live. And this is my view. This is what I look at. I like that tree. Me and that tree are good friends.
What does the tree represent?
It's just freedom. He's out there. been out there, strong.
There are people out there who say, these guys can't be rehabilitated. They can't change.
How can I change that? How can I change their beliefs? I know that I'm all right. I know that I'll never hurt anybody. I'll never hurt anybody.
Just ahead.
I thought that a man who committed the type of acts that he committed should never be put out on parole.
A killer is about to get his walking papers.
We were told, you know, sooner or later he's going to walk and there isn't anything you can do about it.
But some are trying to stop him in his tracks.
Keep him in prison where he belongs.
Betty Ann Ritchie was found nude. She had one bullet hole in her head.
She was beautiful. I guess everybody thinks of their mom that way.
My mother was 8 months pregnant when he killed her.
Obremski shot her in the head 4 times. This is a man who should never be out of jail.
You've heard about the Obremski crimes. You've met the killer. And by now, you're probably asking yourselves, how in the world could this man be allowed to walk out of prison as a free man?
I had a packed courtroom. There was standing room only.
Obremski was tried more than a quarter of a century ago.
It was the first major murder trial I'd ever tried, so...
Judge Lauren Sawyer remembers the trial like it was yesterday.
Mr. Obremski, his own defense attorneys requested I chain him up because he had threatened to stick one of them in the eye with a pencil and hit the other one with a chair.
The jury did its job, guilty of 2 murders.
He never testified.
Came time for you to sentence Obremski. What'd you think at that point?
Well, I was thinking, my hope was that I could remove him from society so that no one would ever run the risk of being hurt by him again.
What were your options with Obremski?
Life imprisonment was it, period.
It was never a question of whether Obremski would be paroled, but only when.
Well, there are roughly 6,500 inmates incarcerated in the state of Oregon.
Danny Santos, a former parole board chairman. All of this is the Obremski file?
That is correct.
Inside this thick file is a legal path Obremski used to walk through the system.
When 1977 came about and the new matrix system was implemented.
Designed to reduce prison overcrowding, the matrix system is a complicated formula that sets a definite release date for all prisoners.
So your release date would be May 24, the year 2001.
This is how it works. The parole board considers the crime.
The crime was burglary 1?
Yes, sir.
Prisoner behavior.
I had a real bad substance abuse problem.
And other factors in determining the release date.
Your new date is June 24, 2002.
For Obremski, the parole board calculated a November 1986 release date. This double murderer would walk free after only 17 years.
Tonight, without commercial interruption, the parole of Russell Obremski.
The news created quite a stir.
The parole board is being flooded with calls. I don't know one person that isn't outraged by this.
That was when I got excited because he was due to get out before Thanksgiving.
It was a wake-up call for the victims' families.
Yeah, I don't want to see any other family go through what I went through.
Clifford Lowe is the husband of Obremski's first victim, Laverna.
We took and circulated petitions like this everywhere in the state of Oregon. We, the undersigned, want the full life sentence with no parole.
How many signatures did you end up getting on
Oh, we lost track, but well over 50,000.
My goal was to keep him in prison where he belongs.
Pam Nelson is the daughter of Laverna Lowe.
We were told, you know, sooner or later he's going to walk and there isn't anything you can do about it.
In 1986, a victims' rights law was enacted.
The door opened and there stood Obremski.
For the first time, families were allowed to speak at parole hearings.
He's going to fall between the cracks and he's going to...
And to study prisoner files.
We got to sit down and go through all their records several times.
And what did they discover?
We found out that the parole board had goofed up.
They were letting him out earlier than what he was supposed to be let out.
Incredibly, the parole board had miscalculated Obremski's sentence by 7 years. How did the board make that mistake back then?
Well, it was actually in the calculations of the history risk score when you take into consideration the number of crimes, the number of incarcerations.
If it sounds confusing, it is. But the result, Obremski's release was reset to 1993.
Every other man that was in this penitentiary in 1969 doing life sentences for first-degree murders, and some of them were a hell of a lot more heinous than the ones that I committed, are on the streets.
Over the next 7 years, Obremski fought to get out.
I just graduated from drug and alcohol self-awareness.
The families fought to keep him in.
Mr. Obremski, how did it feel to rape the twitching body of a pregnant woman?
That's not a parole hearing. It's a trial. I have been retried, convicted, and sentenced 8 times for the same crime.
He's going to do it again and again and again and
What
again.
they thought didn't matter. By law, Obremski's release depended finally on what the doctors thought.
What I found was an antisocial personality. Doesn't really follow the rules.
Dr. George Suko is a psychiatrist who testified for the prosecution at the trial in 1969. Talking with him at the time, did you see any possibility of him being cured?
No.
Dr. Davis. But this psychologist got the final word. Robert Davis was hired by the parole board to examine Obremski.
I have seen over 800 individuals for the parole board.
A positive review from Davis would allow Obremski to walk out of prison in 1993.
In my opinion, using all the criteria, in many years of doing this kind of thing, I concluded that Mr. Obremski was not a clear and present danger.
I like Russell Obremski. I know Russell Obremski. I'm comfortable with him. And so are a lot of other people that know me. I'm a nice guy.
Not always. His prison record shows repeated disciplinary action for drug abuse and sexual activity as late as 1991.
Given this psychological evaluation.
But after the positive evaluation, the parole board said it had no other choice.
Law indicates at this time there are no choices here but to firm up his release date.
Well, you know what's so bad about this, Linda? If he would have done what he did in '69, now he would get the death penalty.
Can I guarantee that he won't reoffend? And that is impossible for me to guarantee.
But what could happen is he'll start using drugs and drinking again, and some woman will say no to his advances, and she'll probably end up dead.
I can't fail. I can't fail. I have got 25 years of rehabilitation in the Oregon State Penitentiary by the finest in the world. How could I fail?
What interest do I have in it? I'm one of his victims.
Still to come.
Turn him loose to kill again? I think it's crazy.
Is release time also revenge time?
He doesn't want to mess with us.
He thinks that one of you is going to come after him.
Could anybody blame us if we did that?
As a mother to an 8-year-old. I didn't know her as a person.
I was 12 years old. You know, if you're hurting, who do you run to?
It's never over. You miss them forever. Just one day, you never get a chance to say goodbye, and they're gone.
The shots Russell Obremski fired shattered the lives of 2 families. The 7 children of the murdered women became Obremski's victims, too. Most left Oregon long ago.
You can give me that nightlight off the TV?
And with Obremski about to walk free, Laverne Lowe's older daughter, Pam, is fleeing Oregon now.
They're not going to monitor him on a daily basis. They're not going to babysit him. He's not.
Pam makes no bones about it. She is scared.
You know, he could see his parole officer at 1 o'clock on Wednesday and be on my front doorstep at 5 o'clock the same day. There's no peace of mind in that.
Why should he want to come after you?
I've been a major burr in his saddle since 1987. Did you wipe out the medicine cabinet and check the drawers?
Russell Obremski tells us that he thinks that one of you is going to come after him.
Could he blame us? Could anybody blame us if we did that?
Missed.
Miles away, out hunting quail in Southern California, Bill and Bob Ritchie insist quail is the only thing they're interested in hunting.
Oh, yeah, here's feathers right here.
Though they lost their mother, too, that dreadful day, and are just as angry.
The law says he deserves a chance. As far as I'm concerned, he could rot in a closet somewhere. You want to work down the creek and I'll go up 15 yards?
Uprooted as children because of their mother's murder, the Ritchies blame Obremski indirectly for problems they've had in life. Few close friends, failed marriages.
The leaves are going down that way.
They think he will leave them alone now, but if not...
He doesn't want to mess with us.
What do you mean he doesn't want to mess with us?
He doesn't.
Because of what you might do, or because...
I won't ever be a victim, that's all.
Yeah,
I'll protect myself.
Pam Nelson is absolutely convinced that he'll do something like this again.
I've heard she's been in his face quite a bit for the last several years.
I need to know if there is a definite parole plan for Russell Obremski yet.
At the 11th hour, before Obremski's parole, Pam is in his face again.
But what happens on those mental evaluations if they find that he is not safe to be on the outside?
Mixing moving.
I called them yesterday and they said they didn't have it.
With desperate phone calls to state officials.
Does he have a job? Does he have a place to live?
Trying to stop the inevitable.
What interest do I have in it? I'm one of his victims. Why should this state, anybody in this state, have to deal with this man? It's not fair, it's unjust, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Pam's still got a lot of anger and even fear of Obremski.
Pam's brother, Ken, claims he's over that, finally. But nonetheless chose to move to Alaska as Obremski's parole neared. He drives a cab here.
He said all these years is that he's going to get whoever tried to block his release from prison. And we did indeed try to block his release from prison.
But what, you don't believe that he will?
I don't know if he will or not. It just doesn't matter to me anymore. I don't care if he does or not. I'm not at the point where I can say I can forgive the man. Okay? But I am at the point where I'm not going to hold it against him anymore because I'm not going to give him that power in my life anymore.
The week so far has been pretty good.
Ken says only counseling through 3 marriages, bouts with alcoholism and drugs, brought him to this point.
You're talking 24 years of self-destruction going on here.
Whoa! I was a straight-A student in school. I had a dream of being a jet pilot. And after that, nah, forget it. You know, that was gone. Each one of us kids has suffered the consequence of being basically abandoned and left to our own devices to overcome all that happened then.
There's no closeness in our family anymore. We had that before he killed my mother. It was there. You know, we had Christmases at Grandma's and we had family get-togethers, and I had a mother that kissed us goodbye every morning and told us she loved us as she went out the door. That was there until he came to our house.
The family agrees Obremski's responsible for so much pain, for broken marriages. Pam's had too. So here are all the family pictures.
These are the ones.
And your mother in the middle.
Place of honor.
Her brothers and sister agree that Becky, the youngest child of Laverna Lowe, has best put the fears behind her. Ironic, since at age 8, she found the body.
These pictures are very therapeutic for me because for many years that was the only memory that I had that stuck out in my mind of my mother was seeing her in the condition that I found her in. And
there is less comfort in some of the others.
I could see it by the looks in the eyes when these pictures were taken based on whether it was before or after the murders. I could see it.
Just before?
See how happy she is? You know, you can see such a difference. You can just see the pain. You can see the pain on his face. Elizabeth lives in Greenville. Yeah.
But Becky vows the pain will not be passed on to her own kids. She says she's happy today after much counseling and help from God.
I think the first step in overcoming this was forgiveness. And we didn't only have Obremski to forgive. There were a lot of people, and I pray for his soul.
Right now, I hate Obremski more than I ever did.
For Pam, it's moving day. The day she has dreaded.
Give me a hug. Come here, you're okay. It's okay.
But her battle lost, the only place Pam is moving is away from Obremski.
You know, I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to leave. And being forced out, or feel like I'm being forced out. You know, I went to high school where my mom went to high school. If I feel a need to feel close to my mom, all I have to do is go into town and go to one of the houses that we lived in as kids and have memories. I'm not going to have that anymore. And that's really going to be hard for me.
Or have any contact with the families of the victim.
Next.
Look at that, man. I'm scared to death.
Out of the darkness of prison, back into the glare of the spotlight.
I think you should be a free man.
A lifer's re-entry into the outside world.
Own room.
I'd give him a 50-50 chance.
I need a cigarette.
You will not leave the state of Oregon without first having written permission not to own or possess and control any weapon. You will not possess any controlled substance. You shall not change your dwelling without...
November 8, 1993, Russell Obremski is finally out of prison.
You're to obey all laws.
He has been freed.
And you're not to enter and reside in Klamath or Jackson counties.
But he's not totally free.
Or have any contact with the families of the victims.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions?
No, sir.
He's on parole for 3 years.
Can I hear a sign?
He's almost on his own.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Ken. Yep.
It's not going to be easy.
For now, his parole officer will check on him twice a week.
Russell, you're shaking. Yeah, I'm nervous.
Yeah,
I'm nervous. There ain't no walls out there.
It's going to be real traumatic.
Is this feeling like you thought it would? No. No? No, I'm scared to death.
Just outside the parole office.
Look at that, man. They got cameras all over the place down there. And,
Okay, we're going out the back door.
We're ready.
Anytime.
Let's go.
Obremski is about to get his first taste of the outside world.
You should be a free man.
He has walked out of a cage and into a fishbowl. People in Oregon are following the Russell Obremski case so closely because of a man named Cal Brown. Just like Obremski, Brown was released from prison on the strength of a psychological report and was on parole here in Eugene. Roughly 2 months after he got out of prison, Cal Brown got into trouble. Big trouble. While he was on parole, Cal Brown killed one woman.
He cut her throat 3 times, huge slashes across her throat, and he stabbed her 3 or 4 more times.
And almost killed another woman.
At that point, he'd reach under the pillow again, pulled out the opened knife, and he raped her.
He got life for the attempted murder.
I need you to move back.
He got the death penalty for the murder.
Keep going.
He should never have been released.
Did you make that point?
Yes. Yes, I was at the parole hearing.
This woman was assaulted by Brown in 1983 and did not want to be identified.
I was scared, and I'm still scared. I told him he was going to do this again.
Her testimony in court helped put Brown in prison for 7.5 years. But nothing she said to the Oregon Parole Board could keep him there.
I have ran that through my head over and over and over, thinking if there was just one thing I could have said, that girl in Seattle could still be alive. But I don't know what I could have said.
Brown was released because, like Russell Obremski, he had a positive psychological review.
Going. You've been following the Obremski case. Obremski says he's a different man now.
Oh, yeah.
Psychiatrists say he's a different man now.
Supposedly Cal Brown was a different man now, too. He was in remission. He was a model prisoner. He was this good little boy now.
You've heard this all before?
Yes.
Were you sure in Brown's case?
Sure that he hadn't changed?
Yeah.
I had no doubt in my mind. No doubt.
Okay, here we go. Get ready to get out. Take a seatbelt off.
Who is this guy?
Can you be that sure with Obremski, though?
Is it worth it to lose another life and risk not being sure?
Yeah, here's a bunch more of these jerks.
Why should someone else die just to give this guy a try?
Mr. Obremski, can we talk to you just real briefly before you...
Why should he have more rights than the victims who are dead or the victims' children who are living this?
Just have a minute with you, sir.
For the first several months, Obremski will be staying at a halfway house in Eugene.
Talk to you real briefly.
Boy, I didn't know freedom was so hard.
This is going to blow over.
Yeah.
It's got to.
I need a cigarette. That's what I need. That's all I got to do is let it go. Leave me alone. I'm not bothering anybody. All I'm trying to do is do something right. And they want to keep it up, keep it up.
Obremski's new house...
What do you make of this place?
Beautiful. Have a nice yard.
...is a halfway house, halfway between prison...
My own room, man.
...and total freedom.
Man, oh man, oh man.
Your first 7 days it sponsors your curfew is at 10 o'clock at night.
There is a strict schedule.
We do drug testing at least twice a week.
And strict rules.
Harassment or intimidation will not be tolerated. Physical violence, no threats, we won't deal with that. Disrespect for others will be grounds for saying goodbye.
You want me to sign that? Feels good to sign my name without having to put a number behind it. Jeez.
Russell Obremski has been away from society for almost 25 years.
It's hard to say with certainty whether he's going to make it or not.
Todd Clear is a criminologist at Rutgers University in New Jersey.
His age is in his favor. People in their late 40s and into their early 50s are not as active criminally as young parolees are. The fact that he's been locked up for around a quarter of a century is not in his favor because it's a tough adjustment.
You don't know how to use a microwave.
No. Now he has to learn about things most of us take for granted.
And hit the start button.
All right. How does this thing work?
See, heavy wash, you'd want it to wash for 15 minutes.
Maybe it's this one.
This is a phone over here that has the answering machine on it.
Oh, boy.
It's going to be difficult.
Didn't take long to figure that out.
Obremski's parole officer, Al McCann.
I've given him a 50-50 chance.
50-50?
Yeah.
That's all?
That's the best I can give him.
In fact, experts say half the people paroled on murder charges end up committing more crimes.
You know how long it's been since I drank out of a glass cup?
6% of them kill again.
I can sit out there and smoke, right? That's right.
That's a small percentage, but still a big risk.
Human behavior is so unpredictable.
This whole thing is just a crapshoot.
Yeah.
I mean, you have no more idea than I do, or than any guy on the street does.
That's not right.
Next,
ain't no wall there.
There's no way to rehabilitate a man like him. He's a sociopath.
Can Russell Obremski stick to the rules and hold on to his freedom?
If it's drugs, if it's sex, if it's killing somebody, that's what he's going to do.
He's capable of, I think, raping and killing. I really do. I think he's a very violent person. And I don't think he's changed that much.
While his victims can't forget the crime he did, Russell Obremski can't forget the time he did.
I want to put that in a frame.
Looks like a star for every 5 years.
Every 5 years.
A going-away present from a fellow inmate after nearly 25 years in prison.
He told me, he said, put this in a frame and hang it on the wall, and every time you start thinking about doing something stupid, he said, count the stars. See if it's worth it. Look at that, man.
You got another tree to look at.
Yeah, but look at that one, man. There's no wall between me and that tree.
There's no way to rehabilitate a man like him. He's a sociopath. He's going to do whatever makes him feel good at the moment. And if it's drugs, if it's sex, if it's killing somebody, that's what he's going to do.
Within a month or so, I should be able, even if it's washing dishes or something, I should be able to get something, you know. I'm on the way. I'm on the way. I'll be all right. It's going to take 2 or 3 days to get used to this, but I'll be all right.
Obremski, yeah, he's going to get on with his life. Great. What happens when his good day is not a good day anymore? Who pays the next time?
So, what happened to Russell Obremski? He started off on the straight and narrow with a job on a ranch and a new girlfriend. But Obremski soon found himself back in court, charged with sexually abusing a 4-year-old relative of his girlfriend. He was acquitted on that. Obremski said the charges were fabricated to get him back behind bars. But he managed to get there on his own. This double murderer was sent back to prison in 1994 for drinking alcohol.
I drank a glass and a half and spent half the night in the bathroom.
A violation of his parole.
Parole release will be denied.
For that, an appeals court ruled he must now serve out his life sentence. The children of Obremski's victims are getting on with their lives.
Well, I guess we're getting old.
Yeah,
Not that old, though.
Betty Ritchie's 2 sons say they feel secure now that Obremski is back in prison.
How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Did Bubby come over, Pam?
Laverna Lowe's daughter, Pam Nelson, she led the fight against parole, is living with her family in Nevada.
There's some salsa.
Come on, buddy. Oh, yeah.
She left Oregon out of fear and has no plans to move back.
What is this, marigolds?
She, too, says she can now go on with her life because her nightmares about Russell Abramski have ended.
And I don't feel like a victim anymore. I don't have to worry about what he's doing, and I don't care what he's doing. He's where he belongs, and that's all that matters.
As for the system that set him free, the state of Oregon now requires more psychological reports before a violent criminal is paroled. And since we first brought you this story, many states have passed tougher rules on parole. Some are moving to abolish it for the most violent criminals, leaving no chance that a killer like Russell Abramski could ever walk free. I'm Dan Rather, and that's 48 Hours. Coming up Thursday on our next 48 Hours.
You are sick! Get the hell out of here! You can pick the house, but you can't pick your neighbors.
A 9-year family feud.
It's definitely a war, Harold.
Neighbor.
They hate each other's guts.
Versus neighbor.
How he's going to fight me? I certainly am not going to have these two chase me out of my house. You people are assholes.
And